If you feel like you are losing your grip, might suffer a trip or abandon ship, open a can of whatever you sip and join the fellowship.
Hello there, welcome to Can You Hear Me Now, a weekly workshop and chat. If you want to have a little chat later on, there's a Google Meet down in the video description down below. And hopefully this week is not going to be as calamitous as last week, where some of you rightfully pointed out the various hues of Pantone red that my face went in sheer embarrassment. I don't know if I was just... What was more embarrassing was the sheer lack of production value last week's workshop, or how whack the beat was that I constructed live to the whole of YouTube. But thanks, as always, for your support and for watching. And I guess this is part of the pleasure of doing these things live is you get a kind of an idea of real world stuff. And, you know, so many of these tutorial videos and stuff that I've, guilty of making. If you just keep a little eye on the clock in the corner of the screen that I'm working on, you'll see exactly how much those things are edited and compressed and stuff, and it all looks very impressive. But today we're going to be doing something in the box, and that is we're going to be, excuse the French in advance, I'll be using it a lot today, copying the fucking temp. I'm not saying this for effect, it's something that composers say to each other. It's what happens when your client basically falls in love with temporary music. Now, the process with editing usually is that the editor will use music to edit to do cuts to, but also the director and the editor will use it for screenings with audiences. And often those screenings will be scored and music will be included, even though the temp is never going to make it to the final picture. You're brought on as a composer, and if it's scored really well, if it scores really well with the audience, often what will happen when you slap on your demos, which will be made with samples and stuff like that, before you maybe record an orchestra, this, that, and the other, what will happen is suddenly they will compare the scores of your music versus the temp. There's also stuff that happens very frequently called temp love, which is where the director, the editor, or the studio, the producers get really attached to a piece of temp. This is particularly common when that piece of temp is something that is maybe, you can't go, oh, that's Debussy's Clair de Lune, which I've had to fight with. I'll never forget a director saying, I want you to do Clair de Lune, but even more moving than that. And I really wanted to say to her, why don't you ask Claude Debussy to copy fucking Clair de Lune and do a better job of it? And so it's not maybe something that is instantly familiar, but it's just something that maybe has been synchronized on a lot of things. There was a period in my formative years as a composer where American Beauty was on everything. What's extraordinary about that score, American Beauty, is so many people know that music, having never seen the film, and that's because it's been synchronized on so many things. So there are points where you will be fighting to get the temp off, you'll be putting stuff on, it will be scoring badly compared to the scores that were received with the temp score, you'll be getting closer and closer and closer and closer to crunch until basically the director will go, can you just copy the fucking temp? Often they won't be used the word fucking, but you will basically speak to another composer and they'll go, how's that gig going? And you'll just go, I've just got to copy the fucking temp. It has its risks. The program makers, the producers, the computer game developers, they are not liable for copyright infringements. That is your legal prerogative as a composer, to make sure that you deliver a score that is free of any possible copyright infringements. So you can get really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And something that certainly my wife enjoy doing when watching television and film is trying to figure out what the temp track was. Sometimes it's really quite obvious. The thing I'm going to be copying today, or trying not to copy, is one of those tracks that's been synchronized on everything, and it's so difficult to get away from because it is so idiosyncratic and so recognizable. And the thing you've got to really watch out for is this thing called passing off. But I'll get back to that in a minute. This track, this exercise, this challenge is part of our challenge series where we hope to give you guys an opportunity to practice your craft on stuff that is not going to get you into any trouble. Practice, in this instance, copying the fucking temp, seeing how close you can get to it, how you can embody the spirit of the temp without falling foul of copyright law. The way to take part in these challenges is if you go to thecrowhillcompany.com, you'll see there's a little area called the Hub. I'm just going to go through to that. You can see up here, the header is copy the fucking temp, and you can direct to it from there, or indeed down here. It's basically a blog, lots of different posts. You'll see the previous challenges that we've done. And basically, the idea is to enter the challenge. There's a little, what's it called? Entry form, isn't it, Simon? Submission form, thank you very much, down here with lots of instructions, this, that and the other. And Simon, when are we saying the submission date is for this one? End of the month?
Yeah, the 29th, I think. It's on the page somewhere.
Okay, so it's on the page. We believe it's the 29th of this month to get your submissions in. Part of this real world scenario is to try and hit a deadline, and so often, particularly in your early stages of any career, you'll find yourself cold pitching. So you're being asked to pitch on what's often a cattle call. A whole bunch of composers will be pitching. You won't get to meet the director or the producer. You've just got to put your pitch in cold. So it's a combination of trying not to get too close, embodying the spirit of the temp, but also, not doing something that's too, I don't know, to try and do something that stands out from the crowd, something that's maybe different. And in order to do that, I've got certain strategies that I observe when copying the fucking temp. So first stage is to obviously read through all of this stuff, terms of conditions and stuff like that, and then download your assets, which is, in this case, a movie with some music attached. The music attached was featured in the latest, not the original, but the latest version of Solaris, which was directed by he's gone out of my head now, Steven Soderbergh, and the score was done by Cliff Martinez, and it features, quite unusually, steel drums. Imagine a science fiction thriller with steel drums, and that's what makes it so idiosyncratic. Doing what I dare say to be something that is very close to a Steve Reichian style piece, steel drums, a small orchestra. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate this is I've been mentioning to people that I'm abandoning Logic and using Reaper. Yes, that's happening in the background, but I'm not using it today because I'm not going to do a live workshop to the internet using a DAW that I'm highly unfamiliar with. So in Logic, I don't know if you guys have done this before, there'll be different ways of doing this within your own DAW. The challenge is DAW agnostic. You don't have to be using Logic. You'll just have to figure out how to load this into your own DAW. So I'm just going to open the movie. It's automatically stuck it on bar 1, and this is the track. And this is at the point at which we lose our monetization. But it's all for the greater good of the music making community. Let's switch the click off. I think an absolute key to not getting yourself into trouble And also not just delivering, if you're part of a cattle call, you're just delivering yet another track that sounds exactly like Solaris. I think the key is to not obsess over the original too much. So what I try and do is limit the number of times I listen to it, maybe once, maybe twice. That way, what I do is I create almost a euphoric memory of the temp. I have to kind of imagine what it did. And in so doing, hopefully, I'm not going to copy it too closely. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the fucking tempo. And what I've noticed is that we don't start bang on the beginning of the movie there. So what I want to do is all of my cues start on bar 5 for reasons I've explained numerous times, but it's basically for pre-roll. And if I ever got an orchestra to play it, it would give the conductor ample time to count the band in. So what I'm going to do is make my tempo start at bar 5, delete the event on bar 1, and let's have a listen to the tempo. You all right, mate? Yep. Okay, so it's not 120. It feels slightly hip-hoppy. So I'm going to take that down to 90. That is a lucky coincidence. Great. Let me take that down. Sounds quite hot there, Alan. So what we can do is just by looking at the waveform, we can see how it really builds. And you can actually use the waveform of the temp as a good guide of the structure of the piece. Now, we actually made this film, and I don't think there are any sync points. But if there were, that would be something I'd really look out for, really hit those syncs, because it'll make the editor happy. And the editor is, at this stage, going to be a very, very important part of the team in deciding whether you get your synchronization or indeed the commission. So what I'm listening to is, fortunately for me, because I'm not theoretically trained, I never really understand what anything's doing musically anyway. But what I'm listening out for is not what it's doing musically necessarily, but the effect that it's happening. So for me, there's a glassy, metallic kind of sound to it, and it has almost like a rainfall kind of thing to it. So yes, it's a set of arpeggiations and there's some double tracking there, but instead of kind of analyzing that, it's what does it sound like? And to me, it sounds like raindrops on maybe like a tin roof. Dissonant, slightly melodic, that occurs at this point. That's a little kind of marker for me. It's interesting. Little entry of something orchestral there. Tension. Okay. So I'm going to pretty much think of this point as a synchronization point, in the sense that there's a clear transient moment with a bass coming in, even though there's nothing, it's not reacting to picture. But I think, again, it's giving the editor director these anchor points that they will be familiar with. They will often point out not musical features to you. They'll go, oh, there was something about it that built there, that changed, that I really liked. And just it goes into a double time there. Great. Also, I feel that this is in 3/4, so I may as well just change the old signature to 3/4. I've got an accent on the click, which I don't usually have. Do we want 3/4 from 4/4? Let's just go 4/4. Whoopsie daisy, not 34/4. 4/4, and then I would like to add a 3/4 bar at bar 5, just to save it getting complicated. So let's go 3/4. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what it's interesting. At the beginning, you feel it's in common time, and then when the bass comes in, it feels like it's coming in on the wrong one, and it's because it's actually in 3/4, and it's almost maybe like Cliff has done a kind of a mouse mix on this, and he's got this pattern going in 4 against the 3. The other part of the challenge we wanted to do is just to create some kind of guardrails to work with, is to use one of our free vaults as a feature. And this vault is the glass beaker, which is aptly suited to the challenge of this, not because it sounds like a steel drum, but it has a similar characteristic. This, to me, has a raindroppy quality. Now, just to let you know, you can see that I'm using the sustain pedal here, which you might not be able to see, but you'll see the thing change, so you'll know that I'm... Okay, so what I'm going to do is just do a very basic rotating 4 time, and then I'm going to create that double time feel, which to me, it's interesting listening to it. It doesn't sound like a delay. It sounds like almost something that's unison that's then been offset. There's the dissonance. There's something tense. So I'm not thinking strings now. I'm not thinking tremolante. I'm thinking something tense. And then there's a harmonic movement that turns the arpeggio into a pedal. So that's what I'm going to do. And I think that when we're in awe of such beautiful pieces of music like this piece of music from Solaris, the temptation is to go, well, because it's so brilliant, it must be made up of like 64 tracks. I think there's probably 4 or 5 tracks of music in there. I think there's just some very clever creation and kind of phasing of stuff going on. So here we go. And this is live, and I'm just not a very particularly good player. So there's going to be mistakes, and I'm working, with some time constraint here. Would like to come over to you in maybe half an hour. So we'll see how well I can make it in that time frame. But let's just lay down a basic pedaling 4 time thing that's going to sit across the 3/4. Just make sure that I'm just going to quantize that, but not massively tightly. So let's go into an 8 note. I'm just going to turn this. Actually, I won't need the metronome now that we've got that rhythm down, but apologies for the volume of that. Q strength is basically just moves things if they're really out of time. So let's have a listen to that. Maybe a bit loose. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that sounds absolutely awful. I'm going to do a double time thing that's completely in a different key. Reason for that, again, quantized, strength down, just so we get a few flams and stuff. Yeah, but the correct quantized rate, Henson. And see, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a pitch algorithm to pitch this down. So the timbre of the glass beaker is different. And I'm going to use... I'm very surprised that people haven't got incredibly bored of me whipping this, my favourite plugin, out. So I played that in A, the thing's in G. Let's go minus 200. And let's just listen to the timbre. I think I'm going to go even further. So the reason I'm such a fan of this plugin is it just adds all sorts of crazy digital artifacts in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transpose this up 4, and let's take this down. Come on, minus 600. Minus 600, come on. Yeah, that's nice. I'm going to take a bit of the bottom end off because there's that kind of thumpy stuff going on. And then what I'm going to do for both of these tracks is create a bus. This is an auxiliary channel, and I'm just going to put a 100% reverb in there. Here. Where are we? My fab filter, and I'm a fan of the Vienna. Basically because it sounds posh. I think that's why. I don't think I've ever tried any of the others in this. So, guilty pleasure. It needs to be 100%. Actually, that is actually a bit boomy. So what I'm going to do is, because it's fab filter, is do a bit of that. Also just going to put some delays on to make this really swimmy. giving me that rain sensation. And this is something I talk about so often with writing. It's not necessarily what you're doing, it's how it makes you feel. Let's see if I can just try something a bit further up to see if we can just make that. Just going to go up an octave. So that's going to be my top line. This is all on the glass speaker. So this I'm getting job satisfaction here. I'm obeying the brief. So I think that the melody came in around there. I'm going to put a little bit more of the reverb. Bit more reverb. That was crap. Too complicated, Henson. Okay, good. I'm going to put this up the octave here. Okay, let's just keep it. Okay, so I quite like the simplicity of the single note, but I just think the straight rhythm, I think it should be something like that. Okay, just loop that. I think might just give it a bit more splosh to help it along a bit. I'm just going to try something a bit crazy. I'm going to try my favourite thing again, AU pitch. And I'm just going to change it so we're maybe up 20 cents, but blend it so it just gives it a slight out of tuneness. I really, really like that. So what I'm going to do is actually automate that plugin. So we've got AU pitch, and what was I doing there? Smoothness. And I'm just going to do a little bit of cheeky monkey business, as it's referred to professionally in the trade. And because because it's doing all sorts of stuff with like artifacts and stuff, what's quite fun is just to do some slightly random movements so we're not repeating the same kind of artifacts. What is that going to be? So it seems to work better when you go faster. Like it. And then what I'm going to do here is totally repeat this, but I'm going to then put the audio pitch on again and go up an octave. Effect blend like this, and let's have a let's automate the volume. Just random poking out like a little turtle popping its beak out of the ocean, hoping no one's hoping to make some glasses out of him. I think what we can also afford to do, just fun, is just going to add another channel here. Just 2 more instruments to go after this, I think. So what I'm going to do is pitch. Let's just alter this ever so slightly. Okay, let's take that down. And then let's just make some use of the space we've got around us. Right, that's good for twinkly rain on the roof stuff. Now, instead, I'm just going to totally abandon the idea of a high tremolando string. I think that actually, to be perfectly honest, we've heard enough of those on stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use some brass and create a similar kind of tension, but with some cluster chords. Deepen that. Oh, I like that. Now, am I going to be able to do this before doing the bass? But let's have a go. fast on that, Henson. Bit sad at the end. It's not sounding watery or moist enough for me. So let's put a bit of... There are a couple of men behind that screen over there who are actually giggling. Now, children. Okay, so let's help it along with a bit of reverb. That's better. Okay, now we need to find a bass, and we've got this new gong thing out. So I'm doing a shameless plug of this. Maybe not that one. Let's go down. Let's see if we can jam with that a bit. So we've got this hit point coming up here. So So I think it's better to possibly put the bass down first. So, but that's a good vibe. Did a rescue record there. Okay, going to 8. I'm going to do a tight quantize on that. I'm going to do a delay. There's a bit of a delay because it's a low pitch down gong. I'm going to compress this as well to just even out the lumps and bumps, and I probably might just draw a bit of the bottom end out. So what I wanted to talk about is passing off. Passing off is basically, there's all sorts of myths about copyright. Oh, if you don't copy more than 7.5 notes or 3 bars, then you can't get done for copyright. This is just bullshit. You can't copyright a drum beat. Bullshit. You can't get publishing, problems if you put it into a different key or tempo. Bullshit. Basically, what it boils down to is two sets of lawyers coming together, convincing each other that one of you are going to lose. And then if it gets to the point where you've gone to the immense expense of arguing this out, applying for a court date, all of those costs, which could amount to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, it will boil down to the opinion of a human being called a musicologist. And what he will be basically saying by presenting a dossier, which may be 3 or 4 pages long, describing why or why not your composition can be passed over or passed off as someone else's. And all they basically have to do is prove that had the piece of music that they think that you've ripped off, had that not existed, your piece of music would not exist as a consequence. It's as simple as that. And I hate to be the harbinger of doom, but if I was to get my crystal ball out, I think where AI is going to really harm composers is not by creating music, is not by making there be no need for assistance, is not by doing away with the industry known as library and production music. I think the greatest damage it's going to do is in the hands of legal firms who basically will watch out for success, and then they will move in on that success, and they'll get the algorithm to search every piece of music that's ever been made in the history of mankind, and they will find something that it can be passed off as. Mark my words. And the reason why I predict this is I've recently been watching Yellowstone. I was very interested by the score done by Brian Tyler. And I went on his Wikipedia, on the Wikipedia page for Yellowstone. And it says on the Wikipedia page, the theme tune to Yellowstone bears an uncanny likeness to, and it names a track by a band. I can guarantee you Brian Tyler has never heard that piece of music. It's the kind of thing that you find on a B-side at the bottom of a thrift store. It's just this really fucking obscure piece of music. And I think basically it's some kind of cantankerous arsehole has basically gone, that music's too good to be done by Brian Tyler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it into Cunty GPT or whatever it's called, and I'm basically, it's going to find me something that it sounds like. Mark my word, this is the next. I'm probably putting ideas into. There's so it's a blood sport out there. And really, when creating stuff for like small films, independent films, student films, this kind of stuff, you really don't have to lose sleep about potential copyright infringement or publishing law infringement. The danger is if something really becomes successful and really starts earning you a lot of money, that's when the wolves come out to play. And it's why someone, so many songwriters now actually have to film themselves writing their own piece of music, even when they're on their own, with a newspaper in the background to prove the date. It's got to that stage, and I think AI is going to be terrifying, which is why you need to be careful about stuff like this, because it's not just you having to do some form of settlement, like going, well, I've copied Cliff Martinez, how much am I kind of doing you out of your pocket? No. What Cliff Martinez's lawyers can do is go, okay, Crow Hill Productions, we're going to injunct that film and you have to withdraw it and reprocess it, recreate the film without that music on. It can cause absolute havoc. And I know back in the day when I was doing library music, someone did a library track that sounded very similar to Chariots of Fire. And it cost tens of thousands of pounds, and this is in 1990s pounds, to rectify. So it's something you just got to be really aware of. And, you know, I think that a lot of people who get into real trouble with music copyright infringements are people who tend to approach music making from a more curatorial, collagey approach, putting things together, or maybe like copying a bit of that and a bit of that, put that together. And I think that people who don't understand the physicality and the process of literally sitting at a piano and making something up from scratch do not recognize what you would consider in your heart of hearts to be composition. So it's a word of warning. I hate to be too morose about these things. Now, I've got a bass line. What was I doing? I was going to do a bit of compression just to iron out the lumps and bumps. Liking that. Am I going to do a bit of bass? Not that. Not the... just a bit of a lump. It's nice. What I'm feeling from the compression is a bit more of a thump, which is great. Okay, so let's see if we can work out some brass that is slightly more sympathetic to those bass lines. Just so you know, I'm using expression on this fader, CC11, and I'm using modulation on this fader here. And if we have a look at what's that's doing, there's a little inner thing there, and expression is just like a volume within the volume of the actual plugin, and then this is actually cross-fading through various dynamics. If you hear it's like bright and brassy there, down here, it's mellow. So it's not just affecting the loudness, it's affecting the timbre, which is it's just lovely when you're doing those cluster notes. So here we go. I'll probably come back to this bit here. So I'm just going to duplicate that track. Are you going to rescue that for me? No. Apply. No. I don't know what I just did there, but it was the bad thing. I did... No! Stop it! Okay, let's record that again. With the record button on this time. Okay, I think I need to help both of these tracks along with a bit of extra emergency splosh. So let's just do that. I'm also going to stick a delay on them as well, just to really help with their decays. I am starting to rush now because this is going on a bit. But I think what I just want to do is I just want to find one sound that really makes it original and different. So let's just tidy up the end. We go. And I'm just gonna, I think let's just go. Just something to stand out from the Joneses. More verb. Yeah. And more delay, I think, as well. More from our gongs, but this is really sped up. That gong sample is like really low. Just going to absolutely swamp this in de splosh, and see, I like that one. So let's go just super large, and I think we might just like talk like one note. Something like that, something nice and simple. So let's. I don't know what I'm pressing. I don't know why I keep on pressing that, Alan. I don't know what it's for. Shall I start pressing the record button when I want to record something? Pantone, whatever. Pantone code 300 toxic crimson. Too much. Let's just get something here, and it's something kind of around here. Let's do that, and that's all we need. It's too much. Stop playing. Stop playing with yourself. Okay. I like it a lot. And let's do it kind of here. Let's bring the piece out with that. Okay, let's run it down and have a listen, see what you think. Is Cliff Martinez Lawyers gonna get on to me? See, this is dull. What's going on? What? Yeah, let's bring that stuff in earlier. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. So the answer is yes, I think they would do me up a cropper, and it's because of that bass line. So what I would probably do, and I think that this is a live workshop just to go over a few principles and talk about approach. But if I was pitching for something, I'd spend at least a day, a couple of days on it. Like to do a day, come back to it, review. And I would certainly try and find an alternate to that bass line. And I'm sad to say it, but I would probably think along legal grounds. So I would probably try and find something that worked in the opposite direction, didn't use the same chordal relations to stuff. So anyway, that's how I would approach copying the fucking temp. And if you want to take part in this challenge, as I said before, if you just pop along to Crow Hill and just take a look at the homepage, if you click on Hub, this is where a lot of our stuff goes on here. You'll see it's up at the top there, or indeed within the body of the blog. There are instructions, there's assets to download, there's the original, see how that was used in context, and then there is a submission form. And we believe the closing date is on the page, but I believe off the top of my head, we don't believe the closing date is on the page. We know it is. I don't have time to quickly read through it, but I believe it's the end of the month, 29th of this month. And the first prize will be winning the next two, 20 seconds. Sorry, my apologies. 20 second. And first prize will win our next two releases, which are really, really exciting. There's a couple of, one is a really big release, so it's a good prize. And the two runners up will really receive our next release along down the line, which is very exciting as well. Just a little something to spice it up, make it a bit interesting. But really, the idea of these challenges is to provide you with real-world experience without having to be in the real world and suffer the consequences, of which I hope I'm not going to keep you up at night by talking about what I've talked about today, of which I've explained today. So we're going to open up the Google Meet. It's linked in the video description down below. And if you want to join us, just do join. Mute your microphone, stick your hand up if you want to contribute. I kind of tend to go in order, and I like to give everyone one go. So if you come on and you try to speak multiple times, do excuse me if I can't come back to you every time. We had just a couple of times someone unmuting their microphone and interrupt. We had to just chuck them off. It's not like we're barring you from the pub or throwing you out of the saloon. It's just because this is on the internet, this is on YouTube. We want people to be able to have an opportunity to voice their opinions, ask their questions, help fellow musicians, but everyone to get a turn, if you know what I mean. So it's lovely to see. I am literally on the world's squeakiest chair. It's lovely to see some people joining in on the Google Meet. And as I said, it's linked in the video description down below. Do we have a little question to throw out there? I'm throwing them under the bus by asking them. No. Alan's just come back from Malaga, and it's so maybe I can ask you, Alan. You went to the Picasso Museum. How was that?
It was great. It was really, really something. I forgot Picasso was born in Malaga. Like that's the whole connection. But I think I said to you in the pub earlier, I grew up, my mum and dad's house, there's a print of Bust and Palette by Picasso. Yeah. And it's in the Picasso Museum. So it was quite funny to see it in real life. Suppose copy the temp, kind of thing. But yeah, it was great. I think I brought the weather back with me. Yeah, like it's been quite nice the last couple of days.
Beautiful, absolutely lovely, really nice. I've always thought Pablo Picasso and Igor Stravinsky. I'd like to see them get into the octagon together, because that's going to go to the death. That
I think you realise.
Look, pictures of Igor Stravinsky and Picasso. They're just like such hard bastards. Yeah. And then, just for good measure, throw in Eric Satie with his hammer on the end of his cane.
And was it Salvador Dali with his anteater? Yeah, there's a fucking dinner party.
But do you know who would murder them all? Who would just take them all out?
Who?
Gustavo Santaolalla. he's Argentinian. Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Ellery, how are you? He says. Alan's. He's back and he's rusty. Oh! We just got to rejoin. There's something that happens to Google Meet. If you don't use it for a while, it thinks you're being... Sorry, guys. Do we have you, Ellery? We don't. Okay. No, sorry, just one moment. I just have to keep nattering on. This is at which point I go from Filthy Crimson Pantone 3033 to say it was Adam, actually. I can see him laughing. He pointed out to me how red I went last week. Hopefully it was a little bit smoother this week. Yeah, we've got a big white screen which we're rejoining. If any of you have any ideas about how we can... Oh, here we are. There's Ellery. I'll shut up. Ellery, how are you?
You're on mute, Christian.
There you go. Ellery, welcome. I can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. It was so great to watch you work through that brief. And I have some questions for you about it. Okay. And the first question is, would you ever, in a scenario where they've said to you, do the temp, we want this, would you ever try to persuade them sonically over to something else? So something is a first pass that is close to that, and then through several revisions, you end up with something that's very different to what they thought they liked or wanted. Would you ever do that, and have you ever done that?
Yeah, what I like to sometimes do is invite the director to work with me on it, so that you start with something that is in the comfort zone of sounding a little bit like the temp, and then eventually you move away from it. I think usually what tends to work, Ellery, there is doing something that is really unexpected. finding something that they go, oh my God, that's really, really cool. There's a couple of things that I think are well worth being aware of is the point at which you give your client a sense of owning something that is truly theirs. It seems to, and I don't say this in a critical way, but it seems to massage the ego into it really secures you on a gig. And there's two ways of doing that. One is a melodic phrase or theme that they absolutely love. So if there's a theme that somewhere else in the piece that you're working on they are totally in love with, if you can try and work that into your temp replacement, they will like that. Even if they don't recognize it, even if you go, well, what I've done is actually the basses and the cellos are playing your theme. So that's one way. The other way is to create a sample library that is theirs and theirs alone. So I got on a gig where I really didn't get on with the director at all, but there was something that hooked him to me, and that was a swarm of mandolins. That it just blew him away that I went and recorded 20 mandolins for him. So that really helped. But yeah, I think be quirky. The other thing that I think is really helpful to think about, Ellery, and this is something that a composer called, I've got to get the name drop, Bell, Daniel Pemberton said to me, is try and cut them off at the pass. So when you see an editor putting this, when you get a sense that something like Solaris or American Beauty or fucking Clair de Lune by Debussy is going on their temp, try and head them off at the pass. And I think that you can appeal to an editor's better experience to go, listen, we're just going to be on a hiding to nothing if you put that on. So that's something that he also tries to do. But what I tend to hope is that you start with the temp and then you go through a series of revisions and you end up far away from the temp, something that's using their palette of sounds, their themes, this, that, and the other. But it can be absolute agony, and I mean it's why we have a fairly sweary term for it as composers, because it just happens all the time, Ellery.
Thank you so much, Christian. I had a second question, a
Sure.
follow-up question, and that was, would you ever share what you've created with anyone else to listen to before you submitted it?
I think it's a brilliant idea. Absolutely. Yeah, and actually just go, what do you think of this? And the first test is they go, it sounds a bit like Solaris. You're done for. Yeah. It's... Yeah, I mean, Solaris, I think, is probably the peak of difficulty for something to replace, because it's just so idiosyncratic and it just sits over bloody everything, you know? You could have someone in slow motion kind of massacring tons of people, or a sunrise, and that piece of music would work really effectively because there's something incredibly evocative and moving in a very simplistic and hypnotic way. It's very interesting, actually, Ellery. I mentioned it on the vlog that I went on, that I put up last Sunday. And I think that I've kept this TV job, interestingly, because they were totally in love with a piece of temp, and I managed to embrace it and basically I managed to get the temp off with a piece of music that they absolutely loved, and they prefer what I've done. And what it was one comment. The editor said, we just love the way it starts and stops. So I felt that was the crucial piece of information was, okay, I don't think they're in love with the piece of music. They haven't found a piece of music that starts and stops and seems to kind of, you know what it's like, Ellery, when you just put a piece of music in it and it'll do something and it'll make a moment that isn't a moment. And I think that's that's what they liked. There was a couple of interesting chord changes and stuff, and it was really nice because it was like, oh, actually, they don't like that piece of music. They just like a piece. They want a piece of music that starts and stops, and they haven't been able to find one that starts and stops in exactly the same spots as their piece of temp music. But you wouldn't be able to spot it, and it's quite an obscure piece of music anyway. So I was glad that I managed to get rid of that bit of temp, because there was another bit of temp that they put on that was just like, oh my God, just so well known. But yeah, so, and it's interesting because I think that we've been struggling on this job a little bit, but the reason why I think they've kept me on it is because I managed to get rid of that piece of temp that the broadcaster really liked as well. So there we go. I hope that helped you. Thanks, Hilary.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles.
Greetings.
How are you doing?
A riff off of what Ellery said, I think this idea of a beta listener is a great idea. I'd be glad to help you if you're interested in it, but I'm not really pitching that. This has nothing to do with what you've been talking about.
That's
but
okay.
I wanted to tell you, Christian, the other day, my wife and I were watching one of your presentations. She's seen several of them because she knows I appreciate your talent.
Thank you.
And she sat there and she said, you know, that young man is really a genius. And I said, yes, he is.
No. Blacker.
So I should have prefaced that by asking you the dimensions of the room you're in, because I didn't know how big your head would get.
Yeah. It's a very small room, and I don't want another aneurysm. Thank you.
I did want to tell you that because she's really impressed.
Oh, thank you.
We've been married 51 plus years, and she's seen everything in the industry, in the acting and the music and stuff. And so she can smell a rat, but she also is a good judge of talent. And she really meant it when she said that young man is a genius. So I wanted to share that with you.
Charles, thank you so much, and thank her. But as someone has pointed out on screen, I've gone red again, very red. They call it, what do they call it? Rosacea. I am going to pronounce this next name wrong, and is it Zeigarnik effect? Actually, it's not your name, is it? It's just Ethan.
It's not, no. It's Ethan, yeah. It's Zeigarnik effect. My brother came up with it.
Okay. How are you doing, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I just have one simple question. Is it imperative for professional composers to be working in 96K? And was you doing that on your laptop just then?
No, I think it's imperative to work at 48K. Or certainly if you output whatever you send to the, for whatever you... Sorry, my brain is just frozen. Whatever masters you create, they have to be 48K. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't work at 96K at all. The only reason I think there is for working at 96K is when you're sampling. And that is basically because 9 times out of 10 when we're sampling something, we tend to want to mess around with the pitch. The minute you start pitching down, you start basically stretching out the samples. If you pitch something down 3 octaves, you will actually start hearing the samples, because you've got to think. Pitch is a weird thing as well, and when you go down, you're actually stretching stuff a hell of a lot more than when you're going up. I'm doing a video about this. There's a reason why when you're pitching stuff up and down, you do it in cents, not in hertz, because pitch isn't continuous. You've got to imagine that an octave above the octave below is half the vibrations. So it's kind of it's I don't think it's a parabola, but it's logarithmic. That's the word I'm looking for. So basically, whenever you're pitching stuff down, you're actually stretching stuff by way more than when you're pitching it up. So that would be the reason to work at 96K. Say, for example, with that beaker that you heard there, that was sampled at 96K, so that when we stretch it down, it still sounds smooth. It doesn't sound all bitty. And by bitty, I mean literally hearing the bits.
Great. That's great. That really answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. That's just so you know, I'm not saying this to make you happier, or it's this format now, what you're doing, this is the best one by far, and I really appreciate this.
Oh,
this
thank
is
you.
really, really, really helpful.
Right.
Yeah, that said, question, does it matter if I don't do any BPM and I just go along and put music just to what I think the picture suits rather than listening to the temp?
Yeah, I think that possibly the mistake that we made creating that sunrise is there are no sync points. And I think that for the next Copy the Fucking Temp challenge, which we should do with American Beauty, Simon, I think that that is something you do have to be mindful of. It really pisses off an editor if he's made a cut that goes with the music and stuff. So I think that there is something to be mindful of. But you're absolutely right. You could have counted that piece in many different ways, triplet form. And as I said at the beginning, it's more creating the spirit of it than it needing to be exactly the same tempo. But if they're pictures cutting to it, then I would humbly advise you to, as the first port of call, it's quite a handy way of listening to a track without over analyzing it and therefore copying it, is actually working out, doing a little tap tempo if it's a variable tempo and stuff. But yeah, the number of things I've had to do where they put a 1950s jazz track on and they've cut it to that, and so I have to do like a tempo map that's like woo, like that, just so I'm still hitting the cuts, because the editor, sorry Adam, but just to continue, I think it's really important to say that the editor is one of where your future survival on a project, the editor is one of the most powerful people that you will be dealing with. And you are basically, he really is working out how to help the director tell the story. And if he feels that you're not doing it, he's the person that the director is, they're like, the editor becomes the wing person for the director in the post-production, and the director will be going, okay, well the composer's just put this, what do you think? So it really is a partnership between the editor and the director, and the editor could get you kicked off, but also the editor will be the person who gets you, will get you to stay on the gig. And often I think of all of the jobs that I've got through contacts who aren't directors, they've all been editors who just went, it was great, came in, he was hitting all the cuts, all of this kind of stuff. Sorry, Adam, I went on a bit.
No, it's all gold. And the other thing was, I did grab a copy of your gong piano, and on the macros that you have, I really like how they work. But I was wondering if can I put them onto my MIDI controller?
Yeah, it just right click them.
Right, okay, I'll try that.
Yeah, a little pop up will come up and just go twiddle the thing that you want to control them with. Yeah,
learn and
yeah, and then you'll be able to automate that within your DAW as well as MIDI automation, not as track automation.
And seeing as though no one else has put their hand up yet, is it okay as well to just venture away from the palette that you've used and very similar to what I know you've got that one instrument that the glass beaker, but regarding to everything else, is it open?
No, I think that I would really encourage it. I think that when there's temp love, I think that if you want people to fall out of love with something, I think it's to I'm not going to use something sexy to try and. I think it's just when you bring something that's fresh, unusual, and possibly throws it into a different light. I think that the number of times I've seen a director grudgingly accept the temp love that the temp copy that I've put on, because it's not as good as the original, but they didn't let me adventure away from it. So that's what I would recommend is to understand, okay, well, what is this piece of music doing with the sunrise? There's a sense of momentum, of something. There's also this beautiful kind of patina about it, and there's something hypnotic. moving in the pedal notes. Those would be the pointers that I would listen out for and try and embrace. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, not a problem at all. Yeah, it's interesting the psychology behind this kind of stuff. It's a very, very difficult thing, and the absolute worst thing is when they put a bit of music on that people are familiar with, because there's suddenly a connection with whatever memory that stimulates, and we all know how sound and music can stimulate memory and this, that, and the other. I think there's only one thing that I prefer less than temp love, and that's when they temp it with stuff that I've written. And often it'll be a brilliant editor who's done something, who thinks they're being so polite, going, "It's okay, I've temped it with all your stuff." And it's just so for me, that's when you create kind of musical mongrels. It's like, that's when like the relatives are shagging. It's horrible to go back. And just to one story that I'll never forget was someone grabbed a piece off a show reel and edited this whole sequence with it, which was a really beautiful sequence. I think it was like a children's party and this, that, and the other. What they didn't realize is they'd taken the music off my show reel. It was a cue that was in a film called Devil's Double, and it was, when you play the darkness of something by playing something light against dark, and basically it was over the scene of Uday Hussein pulling a 14-year-old girl he'd just raped out of the boot of a car. And suddenly this new production had gone, "Isn't it this beautiful music that you wrote?" And you're just like, "Oh God, if only you knew." So, just kind of spiritually doesn't make you feel particularly brilliant. Alan's got his hand up.
Hello.
Hi, Alan.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really fun to watch.
Thank you.
And I was reminded 20 years ago, one of my first jobs I had, it was all temped with Solaris.
Oh, God.
Everything was Solaris. And they just wanted it to sound like that. So, the whole thing. So seeing that, it's like a reminder to be seeing this again. And I think I used a lot of delays and like tape sounds and stuff like that to try to make the delays sound funny. And it's now in a library and it actually gets picked up and used.
Oh, brilliant.
Bits and pieces, because I just sort of threw it into a library afterwards, all these tracks, which was great. But the other one was, I just wanted to say, because another familiar thing that happened was I was doing a job for a company. It was for an ad, and they temped the ad, or they wanted the ad to be done with a really famous piece of music by Brian Eno. And they said, "You have to replace this." And I'm like, "But man, that's Brian Eno doing this track, which everybody knows." So I did it. I created a replacement, and then they got really scared because the company said, "We have to have a replacement. We won't use a Brian Eno track. It's too expensive." They brought in a musicologist because they thought mine was too close. The musicologist passed it, said, "This is absolutely, it's great. You've got the sounds, but they're in a different way. The sound is this way." That was described just as you were talking about musicologists. I thought, this is great. We've crossed the line. We've got through. We're doing it. And they said, we're just going to pay Eno. And so it all got lost, after all that work. And I think it's, even to the fact where you get to a place where you do something for somebody, you put all the work in, you get to the right thing, and somebody goes, "Yeah, we just want to use that other one. We don't really want anything else."
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that, Alan. It's a good story. And it's before we kind of close, it just reminds me of just, and I really thank you for this, because it's reminding me of a very key point that you do have to consider when thinking about legalities of stuff. The most dangerous point for you when you've been asked to copy for temp is when they've already tried to clear the track. Because basically what will happen is the lawyer's ears or the publisher's ears will be up, and they'll go, "Well, we quoted them too much money, but we've got to make sure that they don't either use the track without our permission, or two, do something that sounds really like it." And that is the most dangerous point, is when they approach. And I think this happens a lot in advertising, because advertising synchronizations are very expensive. and the acts have every right to turn them down. Brian Eno is a very good example of that, and I believe that there was a big legal case because Brian Eno has a lot of very strong ethical views about things, and I think it was on a car commercial or something. His music was used, and yeah, I think that what you've got to be very, very careful of is I've been brought onto commercials to go, they're in love with this track. They couldn't get it licensed, so they were wondering if you could have a listen to it. It's so dangerous, really, really dangerous. So just something to be aware of, and just remember that the buck stops with us. I've spent the last, 7 or 8 years, 900 odd videos on this YouTube channel talking about this job. It's a very small part is composing. The bigger part, what we're paid for, is being a head of department, and that means that you are legally liable and obliged to provide your client with something that isn't going to get you or them into trouble. So be safe, play safe. Don't copy the fucking temp too much, but do have a go at our challenge. If you go to thecrowhillcompany.com, hit on the hub, you'll see within the blog section the challenge at hand. And I can't wait to hear what you do with the glass beaker. And thanks as always for watching. I'll try and not get too blushy next week, but I'll be here the same time, same place, 7 p.m. UK time on the Crow Hill Co. YouTube channel. Lots of love to you all. Bye.
If you feel like you are losing your grip, might suffer a trip or abandon